What's going on YouTube? So as you probably know, the Honda Civic is one of the most popular vehicles in the entire world. And this Civic Hatchback is both a more practical and sportier spin-off of that classic example. It was just refreshed last year. And what I'm standing next to today is the latest 2021 example. So let's go ahead and check it out. So right from the start here, I'm going to go ahead and point out what is probably the most substantial change for 2021, and that is the elimination of the EXL trim level. So that's going to reduce the range down to just the LX, Sport, EX, and Sport Touring trim levels. With that being said though, the styling itself does not change this year. So up in the front, you're still going to find that really nice gloss black fascia, which does contrast really nicely with this bright red color. Now off to the side here, you also have your halogen headlights on all of the trim levels except for the fully loaded Sport Touring model, but you do have an LED daytime running light. Then down below, Honda does nicely include halogen fog lights on all but the very base model. Now as far as the wheels, they did change last year with the refresh, and what we have is the middle option of a 17-inch gray finish alloy here on the EX trim level. If you choose the LX, that's going to have a smaller 16-inch alloy, and if you choose either of these Sport trim levels, that's where you get the 18-inch contrast alloys. And then moving up here to your mirrors, they are always going to be body colored. You will get heating when you choose the EX trim level or the Sport Touring, and that's also where you'll have the blind spot camera system instead of blind spot monitoring.
Now, of course, as the name implies, the bigger changes to the Civic hatch are going to be here in the rear because, of course, it is now a hatchback as opposed to a regular sedan. Now, as far as what you're going to get that's different, of course, you have the different design, and you're also going to have two spoilers, which I think is a quite interesting touch, and that's going to be across the entire lineup. Now, as far as your taillights, these are going to be fully incandescent. The brake light, the turn signal, and reverse light is incandescent. And then dropping down here to the diffuser area, of course, this is also quite different from the sedan. You have a lot of black trim to give you contrast. And if you go for the Sport or Sport Touring trims, you're going to get center-mounted exhausts. Now, one of the most impressive features about the Civic hatch is that Honda throws in their entire safety suite standard across the entire lineup. So even the base LX will have all the niceties like adaptive cruise control, auto high beam headlamps, as well as forward emergency braking with pedestrian detection. But as you can tell, the Civic hatch changes quite a bit with the exterior design. But now let's go ahead and check out the rest of the practicality inside before we take this baby out on a spin.
So on the Civic hatch, Honda does nicely include smart entry on all but the very base model, and in addition to that, they throw in remote start so long as you choose the CVT equipped models. Now to get inside the vehicle itself, there is a sensor behind the handle, so just grab it. And once you open up the door, you will be greeted with the pretty much the same interior that you are used to, but that's not a bad thing since it is a very high quality and spacious place to spend time. Now talking about your different interior color and material options, on your LX and your Sport trim level, that will come standard with cloth seating in black only. When you go for this EX trim level, it also has cloth seating, but you have the additional color option of ivory. Then when you go up to the fully loaded Sport Touring trim level, that's where you have leather trim seats in your choice of black or ivory. And turning over here to your door trim, you're going to see those same materials you select from the seat reflected up here. So if you have cloth seating, you will have a cloth trimmed armrest as well as this area above it with a stitching detail. And then this top part here is going to be soft touch. As far as our windows, they're going to be one touch auto up and down for your driver and passenger. And then coming down here to your seats. This EX trim level as well as the Sport Touring are going to come with the 8-way power adjusting seat. The lower two trims will come with a 6-way manual one instead. And then like I was mentioning, most models do have the cloth seat, but I have to say I really like this cloth seat. Really nice fabric, and I love the stitching details that they put on here to make it look nice. So as far as your cabin materials, Honda has always done a really good job with the Civic's interior, and it does continue unchanged for 2021. So up on your upper dash, the only part that's hard is right above the gauges. All the rest of this is going to be soft touch plastic all through here. Now down below we have a kind of gray finish trim. The different models do come with different color trim. You have a soft touch area with a stitching detail. And then down below, we do have some hard touch plastics as expected, but everything does fit together extremely well and feels really, really solid. And to start up the Civic, just press the standard button. So this digital gauge cluster setup became standard across every single Civic hatchback in 2019, and that does continue for 2021. So obviously you're going to have a large display right there in the middle. You can use the little I button on the steering wheel to cycle through a lot of different kinds of information, including some unique stuff like a turbo boost gauge, which is pretty cool. Now, coming back to the steering wheel itself, you are going to have electric power assisted steering with a really nice leather wrapped wheel on all but the very base model. It will be manual adjusting across the entire lineup, and heating is not available. Now up above that, you will have rain sensing wipers if you choose the fully loaded Sport Touring model. And then on the other side, this is where you will notice a little button over here to activate your lane watch camera, or you can signal to the right. So this is on the EX trim level and above, and obviously instead of having blind spot monitoring, it just shows you a live camera feed of what's on in your blind spot. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about interior storage, which remains one of these Civic hatchbacks' just really unrivaled areas. So with this center console, very unique setup with a lot of space. So you slide that back, you've got basically a couple layers of sliding trays. You also have 2 cup holders, and you can slide that back and reveal a 3rd cup holder. As you can see, this is all really deep and you have a ton of storage. So if we kind of slide that out of the way, and we grab out our coupons, it's going to be no problem whatsoever sticking these in here. Which, by the way, this is an area that the Corolla has failed, so we have a lot more storage here on the Civic. Up in the front here, we have another large storage area, good for a cell phone. And then really unexpectedly, we even have a center pass-through with some more storage. So this, like I said, really the Civic is unrivaled in this class as far as storage goes. Now, as far as your shifter, this is just a traditional style shifter. So obviously you're going to pull back for drive. You can pull back again for sport mode, and then another time if you want to activate the low. Now, as far as paddle shifters, those are available only on the Sport and the Sport Touring trim levels. Then when we head into reverse, this is where you'll find a standard backup camera across all of the models. However, when you choose the EX trim level or above, that's where you'll have the active trajectory. And then you also have 3 different camera angles to choose between. Right next to the shifter, you have your brake hold and your electronic parking brake. All right, so let's move on up here to our climate controls. So you will have an automatic climate control setup across all of the models. However, it's only dual zone automatic on the EX and the Sport Touring. So like I said, you have both zones to choose between, so you have 2 easy to use knobs. You have your fan speeds right here, though a few of your functions do live inside of the display when you hit the climate button, like your zones. Now down below that, we also have 3-stage heated seats, and those are included with the EX trim level and above, just like the dual zone climate control. Okay, so the next thing up the dashboard is our audio systems. Now there's several different audio systems on the different trim levels. since we're in the EX, we have the middle option, which is a 180 watt 8-speaker setup. So let's go ahead and take a sample of it. I'm quite impressed by this sound system, especially since this is not, you know, a high-end sound system. Definitely has a good punch for this class of vehicle. Okay, so now we're here at our main display. So starting at the refresh, the base model, that is the only one that gets the 5-inch display. All the rest will come with this 7-inch display. Now, as you can probably tell, we do have shortcut buttons along the side, but we are running the older style Honda Link system with the older graphics. Now, as far as integrated navigation, that's going to be included on only the fully loaded model. However, all of the trim levels with the 7-inch display will come with both Android Auto and Apple CarPlay abilities. Now, moving on up, you will have an auto dimming mirror on only the Sport Touring trim level, since that EXL has been eliminated. But thankfully, Honda does throw in a power sunroof, so long as you choose this EX trim level or above.
All right, so getting in the Civic Hatch's rear seat, you're going to be met with the typical Civic rear seat, which is a lot of space and a lot of comfort. So as far as the space itself, it's going to come in at 36 inches of rear legroom, 37 inches of rear headroom, which is a touch behind that of the regular Civic sedan. However, it is quite a bit larger than the Corolla hatch. And as far as the space behind rear seating position, I have about, I would say, 4 inches of rear legroom, and my feet can easily slide up underneath the seat, so certainly 3 full-size adults could fit back here. Now, as far as your features, you're not going to have any on this EX trim level. However, if you go for the fully loaded Sport Touring, you are going to throw in heated rear seats, and then we also have a fold-down armrest with cup holders inside. Now, walking up to your tailgate, there is a button under the lid, so just push that and it will open right up. And once you do, you will find a lot of space in this Civic Hatchback. This is honestly one of the most impressive areas about this vehicle, because you're paying almost Civic sedan money, but you're also getting a lot of space back here. So it's coming in at 26 cubic feet of space behind the second row seats, and that expands to 46 cubic feet if you fold it. Obviously a huge improvement over the regular Civic sedan. And as far as how they finished it, we do have a carpeting along the floor, and if you lift it up, there is a spare tire up under that. We also have lighting on the side, as well as a cargo cover. Now here at your passenger seat, this is going to be manually adjusting on the vast majority of them, but you can get a 4-way power one on the Sport Touring. And then as far as the glove box, watch out because it is not dampened. However, Honda does make up for it by providing a absolute crap ton of space for our coupons. So regardless of if you have McDonald's, Burger King, whatever, you can fit that in here very nicely. Now up top we do have a sun visor, it does have a light and a mirror, and you can also detach it as well as extend.
Not bad. So that was about 60 miles an hour and we're going uphill, so yeah, pretty good. Now, one of the big things to know about the Civic Hatchback that is important is that it skips the base engine from the sedan. So you don't have the 2-liter naturally aspirated engine, you go straight to the 1.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. That's going to produce 174 horsepower with the non-sport trim levels, and then 180 horsepower if you choose the Sport or the Sport Touring. Whether or not you'll be able to tell the difference between those two, highly doubt it, but you do get just a little extra power if you choose one of the Sport trims.
Yeah, and really a good thing about having that turbo engine is just how quiet and refined. It does also give you a lot more power, but having the 1.5 liter, we've said it in a lot of other Honda reviews, is just a very quiet and refined engine. So you're really going to have a more premium experience out of this as opposed to like a Civic sedan in the sport trim.
Yeah, and I really like the power of the torque. Really nice down low, so you kind of get off the line really nice and swiftly.
But just cruising along here, I do also want to discuss the ride quality, since you won't always be hustling your Civic Hatch around a country road. You'll be doing a lot of highway cruising. And here going around 60 miles per hour, I don't think it's really too loud in this cabin. I will get a sound level reading to kind of confirm, but there is a little bit of wind noise. Nothing I wouldn't think out of a vehicle in this segment, though. Looks like we're registering around 61.5 decibels. So you are going to have quite a bit of noise entering into the cabin. This is, of course, a Civic, but also I don't really think it's uncharacteristic for this type of vehicle. And as far as the ride quality is concerned, you're definitely going to have a solid ride in this as well. It's going to soak up the bumps. However, it does have a distinctly sporty feel to it, as Drew will talk about later in the driving dynamics.
Right, this is one of the sportier offerings in the class, and the hatchback is even a little bit sportier than the sedan. So, you know, you are going to have really nice benefits in that regard for sure. And since we mentioned the driving dynamics, I just want to go ahead and kind of talk about that. It's just like going around that corner there swiftly. This is a fun to drive vehicle. It really is. I've always been impressed by this. You know, as soon as you get behind the wheel, because the majority of things in this class, frankly, are just not enjoyable to drive. This and like the Mazda 3 are really the only two things that when you get behind the wheel, it really puts a smile on your face. And that's just a nice benefit that you don't really expect when you buy a car that's in this price range, but you actually have fun. And you know how they say it's more fun to drive a slower car fast than a fast car slow. It really does fit into that, because you can kind of go canyon carving and you really have a good time with this.
Yeah, and that's just going to be today's slam dunk, is the overall driving experience out of this hatchback. It's an absolute blast to drive, and as you can see, I mean, I don't know if the camera will pick up on it, but going around those corners, it just stays so flat. It's very uncharacteristic, like what Drew was mentioning.
Yes, and the steering really just has this pleasant feel to it, very accurate, very fast responding, and even the bolsters are a little bit thicker here. It just all together, it feels like a really genuine sporty vehicle, but you're not really sacrificing anything in terms of fuel economy and stuff like that. Now, as far as the air ball, that's certainly not going to be anything to do with the driving dynamics. That's actually just going to be this infotainment system. This is Honda's old style infotainment system. We've said a long time ago we wish they would replace it. They still haven't replaced it. It's just kind of older and slower. I wish they had the newest version. So by this point, you've probably noticed we've got the continuously variable transmission. As far as the transmission, it doesn't kill the fun. It's a good CVT, very responsive. Like I said, it really works well with the turbo engine. It gets you off the line in a way that feels really nice. Now, there's no shift simulations or anything like that, so you will know that you've got a CVT, but it does its best to keep things down low without any droning or anything like that. But more importantly, is that you can get a 6-speed manual if you choose the Sport or the Sport Touring trim level. So that's really rare at this point to offer the manual, and especially to offer the manual with the fully loaded model. So that really, like goes well with what we've been talking about. This being a sport-oriented model, Honda is targeting that audience.
Now let's wrap up what we need to discuss here by talking about the fuel economy. So for the 1.5 liter engine with the CVT, that's going to be rated at 31 city, 40 highway, 34 combined. And then if you go for the 6-speed manual transmission, that's going to drop down to 32 combined. Now, as far as the pricing is going to be concerned for the Civic Hatch, you're going to see a little bit of a price increase over the regular sedan, although it's not a huge difference in price. So for the LX, it's going to start at $22,000. The Sport is $23,900. EX is $24,500, and then the Sport Touring is $29,200. Now, that is worth noting, that's with the CVT transmission. So if you go for the manual, it's going to cost $800 less. Now, as you know, Honda doesn't do options, so all we do is add in the destination charge of $955, brings this one to $25,455 as equipped, which I have to say I'm very impressed with that price point. You're actually getting a lot of features in this EX to make it a more luxurious experience, and as we've talked about throughout this entire review, you're getting a lot of sport, a lot of style, and practicality with this hatchback model. Well guys, we hope you enjoyed watching this in-depth review of the 2021 Honda Civic Hatchback. We really appreciate you watching, and if you made it this far in the video, don't lie, I know that means you enjoyed at least a little bit, so be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.